I don't even know where to start. My name is Mark, and until yesterday, I thought I was living the American dream. I had a successful tech career, a beautiful penthouse apartment, and the woman of my dreams, Maya. We'd been together for 5 years. 5 years. That's 1,825 days of smiles, I love yous, and shared dreams. I thought I knew everything about her. I was wrong. I didn't know her at all. The woman I lived with, the woman whose hand I held when her grandmother died, she didn't exist. She was a ghost, a character in a movie she was writing, directing, and starring in, and I was just the clueless background extra paying the entire budget. It started innocently enough. Maya was away on one of her frequent marketing consulting trips, this one to Los Angeles, supposedly. I was at home, doing some deep cleaning in my home office, when I found an old gold iPad in the back of a drawer. It had a cracked screen and a layer of dust that suggested it hadn't been touched in years. I decided to plug it in and wipe it so I could donate it. While it charged, I went back to my work, completely forgetting about it. An hour later, I heard a sound. Not a standard system chime, but a faint, repetitive ding, like a notification. The iPad had finally charged enough to turn on. I swiped the screen. There was no passcode. And that's when my world exploded, because Maya, in her hurry to set up her new iPhone, had made a critical mistake. She'd forgotten to sign out of her old, dummy iCloud account on this dusty iPad, and the moment it connected to my home Wi-Fi, it did exactly what a modern device is supposed to do. It synced everything. It updated a hidden chat app, an app I didn't even recognize. And right there, on the cracked screen, was a message thread updated exactly 20 seconds ago. From wedding planner Sarah. The message said, "Maya, the final payment for the venue just cleared. $10,000 to the Rosewood Estate. We are officially on schedule. Can't wait to see your groom's face." I froze. I literally stopped breathing. The Rosewood Estate, venue, $10,000. We weren't getting married. We hadn't even discussed it. And I certainly hadn't authorized a $10,000 payment for anything. With trembling hands, I tapped the chat app. There was no biometric lock, just hundreds of messages in a thread titled Project Wedding. I scrolled down to the very first message. 5 years ago. The day we met. And right next to it, I opened my personal bank app, my joint account, the account I had trusted her with to pay for our apartment, our groceries, her car lease, the account I worked 80 hours a week to fill. I stared at the screen, comparing dates and amounts, and felt the warm, toxic acid of absolute betrayal rise in my chest. She hadn't just been lying. She had been stealing. She was building an entire future, an entire life, an entirely different wedding. And I wasn't the groom. I was just the unsuspecting sponsor. And the best part? She wasn't in Los Angeles. According to the chats, she was in Vermont. At the Rosewood Estate, finalizing the flower arrangements. The story of my entire 5-year life was a lie, and I was about to find out exactly how deep the rabbit hole went. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the iPad against the wall. When your entire reality is pulled out from under you, your brain goes into survival mode. You become hyper-focused. A cold, mechanical numbness washed over me. I pulled my laptop closer, logged into my main banking portal, and began the most agonizing audit of my entire life. Maya and I had an arrangement. Because I made significantly more money in the tech industry, I agreed to cover 90% of our living expenses. But Maya was the one who actually managed the accounts. She was the organized one. She paid the landlord, she paid the car leases, she handled the utility bills. I opened the transaction history and cross-referenced it with the chat logs on her old iPad. It was a masterpiece of financial deception. The $10,000 charge to the Rosewood Estate wasn't a sudden theft. It was the culmination of years of microtransactions. I found fake invoices for her marketing consulting business, software subscriptions, travel expenses, client dinners, All of it funneled from my account into a secret secondary account she had opened under her maiden name. She had been inflating our rent by $600 a month for 3 years. She told me her car lease was $800 a month. I found the actual dealership document in her hidden email folder. It was $300. She had been pocketing the difference every single month. My hands gripped the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles turned white. She wasn't just planning a wedding. I had literally bought her the engagement ring. I found the receipt for a custom 3-carat diamond from a jeweler in Chicago, paid for by a series of emergency medical bills she claimed her mother needed help with last year. Her mother. That thought made me freeze. I switched back to the chat app on the iPad and searched for her mother's contact. Maya's mom, Helen, used to come over for Thanksgiving. She used to hug me, look me in the eye, and call me the son she never had. I opened their text thread. Pause for effect. Speak the next lines with absolute disgust. Helen, is the ATM out of town this weekend? Liam wants to look at cake samples. Maya, yeah, Mark has a tech conference in Seattle. I'm flying Liam out on Friday. I used Mark's points for the flight. Helen, perfect. Just make sure you wash the guest room sheets before he gets there. You know how Liam is about the smell of Mark's cologne? I felt physically sick. I had to push my chair back and put my head between my knees just to remember how to breathe. Her mother knew. Her sister knew. Her bridesmaids, women who had sat at my dining table and drank my expensive wine, knew. I wasn't a partner to them. I was a financial instrument, a joke they all laughed at behind my back. And then there was Liam. I found his profile. Liam was a handsome, rugged-looking guy who worked as a freelance photographer. But as I read through Maya's messages with him, a very strange, twisted detail emerged. Maya wasn't just lying to me. She was lying to Liam, too. To Liam, Maya was a highly successful, independent tech executive. She told him she owned the penthouse. She told him she bought her own car. She told him she was paying for their dream wedding entirely by herself because she wanted to spoil her future husband. She was playing us both. She was using my money to play the role of a wealthy sugar mama for another man. I looked at the date on the calendar. The wedding at the Rosewood estate was exactly 3 weeks away. 21 days. Most men would have confronted her the second she walked through the door. They would have screamed, demanded their money back, and kicked her out. But as I sat there in the dark, surrounded by 5 years of perfectly orchestrated lies, I realized something. If I confronted her now, she would just cry, play the victim, and run off to marry Liam with the money she had already stolen. No, that was too easy. If she wanted to put on a show, if she wanted a cinematic, picture-perfect wedding, I was going to make sure she got a grand finale that nobody would ever forget. I picked up my phone. It was time to introduce myself to the groom. There is a very specific type of madness that takes over when you decide to meet the man who is secretly marrying your girlfriend of 5 years. You don't sleep, you don't eat, you just obsess over the logistics. Through the cracked screen of Maya's old iPad, I found the address for Liam's photography studio. He lived in a mid-sized city about 3 hours away from my penthouse. According to her calendar, Maya was currently at the Rosewood estate in Vermont doing a cake tasting, which meant Liam was likely at his studio working. I didn't call him. If I called him, he might panic, call Maya, and she would immediately spin a web of lies, claiming I was a crazy, obsessed stalker or a jealous ex-boyfriend. Narcissists are terrifyingly good at damage control. I needed to see him face to face. I needed to trap him in a room with the undeniable, suffocating truth. I printed out 40 pages of documents, bank statements highlighting the transfers, the actual lease agreement for her car, signed by me, the deed to my penthouse, which she claimed she owned, and most importantly, screenshots of the text messages between her and her mother, laughing about the ATM. I put everything into a thick, heavy manila folder. The 3-hour drive felt like it took 10 years. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. My jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. I arrived at his studio around 2 p.m. It was on the second floor of an old brick building above a quiet coffee shop. I didn't go up to his office. Instead, I sat in the corner booth of the coffee shop, ordered a black coffee I didn't drink, and waited. At exactly 2:45 p.m., the bell above the door chimed. A tall guy with messy brown hair and a vintage leather jacket walked in. I recognized him instantly from the photos. It was Liam. He looked tired, rubbing the back of his neck as he waited in line to order. He looked normal. He didn't look like an evil mastermind. He just looked like a guy grabbing an afternoon espresso. I stood up, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, and walked over to his table just as he sat down. "Liam?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly calm. He looked up, blinking in surprise. "Yeah? Do I know you from somewhere? Are you a client?" I didn't smile. I slowly sat down in the chair across from him, placing the thick manila folder directly in the center of the small wooden table. "No," I said softly, looking him dead in the eye. "My name is Mark. You don't know me, but we have a very important person in common. I am Maya's ATM." His brow furrowed in deep confusion. "Excuse me? Maya's what? Who are you?" "I am the man who lives with Maya," I stated, leaning slightly forward, lowering my voice so the barista couldn't hear. "I am the man who pays for the apartment she told you she owns. I am the man who pays the lease on her Audi. And as of yesterday, I am the man who discovered I am unwittingly financing your entire $10,000 wedding at the Rosewood Estate." Liam actually laughed. It was a short, nervous bark of a laugh. He looked around the coffee shop as if looking for hidden cameras. "Okay, buddy. Is this a prank? Did Maya put you up to this? Because if this is a bachelor party joke, it's really weird." "Open the folder, Liam," I said. My voice was completely devoid of emotion. It was the voice of a ghost. He looked at my face, realizing I wasn't smiling. The amusement slowly drained from his eyes. He reached out with a hesitant hand and flipped the heavy cover of the folder open. The first page was a printed photo of Maya and me, sitting on our couch, holding a birthday cake from 3 months ago. The caption she had written on the back, in her own handwriting, said, "To my amazing Mark, 5 years strong." Liam stared at the photo. His breathing stopped. "Turn the page," I instructed quietly. He flipped the paper. The next document was my bank statement, with a bright yellow highlighter marking the $10,000 transfer to the Rosewood Estate, immediately followed by a screenshot of her message to the wedding planner. "She told you she was a successful tech consultant, right?" I asked, watching the color rapidly vanish from his face. "She told you she traveled to my city for board meetings. She told you she wanted to spoil you by paying for the wedding herself." Liam didn't answer. He was rapidly flipping through the pages now, his hands shaking violently. He saw the car lease, he saw the rent checks, he saw the messages with her mother. When he reached the text where her mom asked if the ATM was out of town, Liam let out a sound that I will never forget. It was a choked, agonizing gasp, like he had just been stabbed in the chest. He covered his mouth with his hand, his eyes wide and filling with tears as he stared at the undeniable proof of his completely fabricated reality. He looked up at me. He looked destroyed, utterly, completely broken. And in that moment, the burning hatred I had felt during the entire car ride vanished. I realized he wasn't my enemy. He was just the second half of her twisted little game. I quit my job for her," Liam whispered, his voice cracking. "She told me I could focus on my photography full-time because her company was doing so well. She's been paying my studio rent." "With your money." He ran both hands through his hair, hyperventilating slightly. I have to call her. I have to call her right now and cancel everything." He reached for his phone, but my hand shot across the table, grabbing his wrist. My grip was like iron. "No," I said. The tone of my voice made him freeze. "What do you mean, no?" He panicked, staring at me like I was insane. "She's a monster, Mark. We have to stop the wedding. It's in 3 weeks." A slow, humorless smile finally crept onto my face. It was a cold, calculating smile. "Liam," I said softly, letting go of his wrist and tapping the folder. "She spent 5 years treating me like a bank. She spent 3 years treating you like a prop. She lied to our faces. Her mother laughed at us. If you cancel the wedding over the phone, she will just play the victim, spin a story to her family, and disappear." I leaned in closer until there were only a few inches between us. "She wants a wedding," I whispered. "She bought the dress. She booked the venue. She invited 200 people to watch her live her perfect, wealthy fantasy." Liam stared at me, his eyes widening as he slowly began to realize what I was suggesting. "Let's let her put on the white dress," I continued, the plan solidifying perfectly in my mind. "Let's let her walk down the aisle. Let's let her stand in front of all her friends, her family, and her enabling mother." I extended my hand across the table. "Let's give her a wedding day that nobody in that room will ever, ever forget." Liam looked at my hand. Then he looked at the folder. He took a deep, shuddering breath, wiping the tears from his eyes, and a terrifyingly dark look settled over his face. He reached across the table and shook my hand. The alliance was formed, and Maya had absolutely no idea what was coming for her. The next 21 days were an absolute masterclass in psychological torture. When Maya returned from her consulting trip in Los Angeles, which Liam confirmed was actually a 3-day cake tasting and dress-fitting extravaganza in Vermont, I was waiting for her in our penthouse kitchen. I heard the key turn in the lock. I heard the familiar click of her expensive heels on the hardwood floor. She walked in, dropping her designer luggage, smelling of airport coffee and her signature vanilla perfume. She smiled brightly, walked right up to me, threw her arms around my neck, and kissed me. "I missed you so much, babe," she sighed, leaning her head against my chest. LA was exhausting. The clients were so demanding. It took every single ounce of willpower in my entire body not to violently push her away. My skin crawled where she touched me. I forced my arms to wrap around her waist. I forced the muscles in my face to form a loving, oblivious smile. "I missed you too, honey," I lied smoothly. "How was the trip? Did you close the deal?" "Oh, you know me," she beamed, pulling back to look into my eyes with complete, terrifying sincerity. "I always get exactly what I want." She had no idea. She thought she was holding a man who was blindly paying for her fairy tale. She didn't know she was holding a live grenade with the pin already pulled. For the next 3 weeks, Liam and I operated like a 2-man Black Ops team. We communicated exclusively through an encrypted messaging app on a burner phone I bought with cash. During the day, Maya would sit at our dining table with her laptop, supposedly typing up marketing reports. In reality, Liam was texting me live updates. "Liam, she's picking the floral arrangements right now. She wants white roses." Me, "Let her have the premium ones. Add it to the tab." It was absolutely surreal. I was literally watching her spend my money in real time. But I wasn't just sitting there letting it happen. I was meticulously setting the financial trap. I went to my private banker. I didn't close our joint account immediately. That would have tipped her off. Instead, I set up a specialized transfer protocol. I authorized all of her current vendor deposits to clear, keeping her completely comfortable and unsuspecting. But I placed a hard, irrevocable freeze on the account that would automatically trigger at exactly 3 p.m. on the day of her wedding. The caterers, the photographer, the live band, and the open bar were all scheduled to run their final, massive balances on the evening of the reception. When they swiped her card, or rather, my card, at 5 p.m., every single transaction was going to brutally decline. The week of the wedding finally arrived. Maya packed her bags on a Tuesday, telling me she had a massive corporate retreat in upstate New York that would last until Sunday. "I'll be totally off the grid, babe," she said, giving me a perfectly rehearsed pout at the front door. "Service is terrible at the retreat center, but I'll call you the second I get back. I love you." "Have a great time, Maya," I replied, standing in the doorway, watching her load her bags into the Uber. "It's going to be a weekend you'll never forget." She waved, completely missing the double meaning, and the car drove away. I walked back into the silent, empty penthouse. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't pour a drink. I went straight to my closet and pulled out my favorite custom-tailored black suit. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Liam. Liam. "She just got to the hotel. The rehearsal dinner is tomorrow. The presentation is locked and loaded. Are you ready?" I looked at the black suit hanging on the door. I looked at the thick manila folder sitting on my desk, filled with every receipt, every lie, and every text message her mother had ever sent. I picked up the burner phone and typed my reply. Me. "I'm driving up Friday night. Leave my ticket at the front desk. It's time to crash a wedding." The Rosewood Estate in Vermont was not just a venue. It was a fortress of absolute luxury. It sat on 50 acres of pristine, manicured grounds with a private lake, a massive stone mansion, and an elegant glass conservatory. I arrived late Friday night. I parked my rental car near the back of the lot and walked into the grand lobby. Just as we planned, Liam had left a room key for me at the front desk under the name Mr. Smith. My room was on the 3rd floor, offering a perfect, unobstructed view of the courtyard where the ceremony was being set up. I didn't sleep that night. I stood by the window in the dark, watching the catering staff set up hundreds of white chairs, a massive floral archway, and an outdoor champagne bar. I was looking at the physical manifestation of my 80-hour work weeks. Every single white rose down there represented a late night at the office. Every bottle of imported champagne represented a bonus I had earned. It was my money, building a kingdom for a liar. Saturday morning arrived with bright, cloudless skies, the perfect day for a perfect wedding. At 1 p.m., I put on my black suit. I adjusted my tie in the mirror, looking at a man who had completely detached from the pain of heartbreak. There was no sadness left in my eyes, only a cold, absolute resolve. Through my window, I watched the guests start to arrive. There were about 200 people. I recognized several faces from the crowd. I saw Maya's cousins, I saw her college roommates, and then I saw her mother, Helen. Helen was wearing a stunning, custom-tailored silver gown. She was laughing loudly, holding a mimosa, hugging Liam's relatives, and playing the role of the proud, wealthy matriarch. She looked so comfortable, so incredibly smug. She had no idea that the ATM was currently standing 3 stories directly above her, watching her every move. At 2:45 p.m., I checked my watch. 15 minutes until the financial guillotine dropped. I left my room and took the service elevator down to the ground floor. I slipped out the side doors and quietly joined the back of the crowd as they took their seats in the courtyard. Because it was a massive wedding, Liam's side of the family just assumed I was one of Maya's distant colleagues, and Maya's side assumed I was one of Liam's friends. I was a ghost in a black suit. I took a seat in the very last row, right next to the central aisle. At exactly 2:59 p.m., the string quartet began to play. It was a beautiful, sweeping classical piece. I checked my phone. My banking app sent an automated push notification. Account freeze authorized. All pending transactions declined. It was 3 p.m. The caterers, the bartenders, and the venue managers who were currently swiping the final payment cards inside the mansion were about to get a very nasty surprise. The money was gone. But I wasn't going to let that stop the show. Not yet. The guests stood up. I remained perfectly still, hidden behind a tall uncle of Liam's, as the double doors of the conservatory opened. Maya stepped out. She looked absolutely breathtaking. She was wearing a custom-designed $10,000 lace gown. Her hair was perfectly styled, and she held a massive bouquet of white roses. She was glowing, offering a shy, radiant smile to the crowd as she began her slow walk down the aisle. She looked like an angel. The illusion was flawless. I looked past her, toward the altar. Liam was standing there in his tuxedo. To the guests, he looked like a nervous, emotional groom fighting back tears of joy. But I knew the truth. I could see the slight tremor in his jaw. I could see the absolute nausea in his eyes as he looked at the woman who had manipulated him for 3 years. He caught my eye for a fraction of a second from the back row. I gave him a single, almost imperceptible nod. Maya reached the altar. She handed her bouquet to her sister, turned to Liam, and took both of his hands in hers. She beamed at him, her eyes shining with fake, perfectly manufactured tears. The officiant, a kind-looking older man, stepped up to the microphone. "Dearly beloved," his voice echoed across the quiet, sunlit courtyard. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Liam and Maya, a union built on a foundation of honesty, trust, and unwavering love." The irony was so thick I could almost taste it. The officiant went through the beautiful opening remarks. He talked about their journey, their commitment, and the beautiful future they were going to build together. Maya kept wiping a delicate tear from her cheek, playing the crowd like a maestro conducting a symphony. And then, the officiant reached the most critical, traditional part of the ceremony, the part that most modern weddings skip, but Maya, in her obsession with cinematic perfection, had insisted on including. "Before we proceed," the officiant announced, looking out over the crowd of 200 smiling faces. "If anyone here knows any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The courtyard fell into a completely expected, comfortable silence. Maya smiled at Liam, waiting for the officiant to continue. I stepped out from behind the tall uncle. I took one step into the center of the white-carpeted aisle. The sun caught my black suit. "Actually," my voice rang out, loud, clear, and perfectly steady, cutting through the silence like a gunshot. "I have a few reasons, about 40 pages of them, to be exact." 200 heads turned in perfect unison. A collective, sharp gasp rippled through the courtyard. I stood in the center of the white aisle, holding the thick manila folder, the afternoon sun beating down on my black suit. I didn't look at the crowd. I didn't look at Liam's confused family. My eyes were locked entirely on Maya. The transformation of her face was something out of a horror movie. All the radiant, glowing color drained from her cheeks in a millisecond. She went sheet white. Her jaw literally dropped, and the beautiful, expensive white roses slipped from her trembling hands, scattering across the floor. "Mark!" Her mother, Helen, shrieked from the front row, standing up so fast her chair tipped over. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Seattle." I finally pulled my eyes away from the terrified bride and looked at the mother who had laughed at me for years. I offered her a polite, chilling smile. "My conference got canceled, Helen," I said, my voice projecting effortlessly across the silent guests. "I decided to come check on the ATM. It looks like it's been dispensing quite a bit of cash lately." Helen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She instantly knew. Maya, operating purely on narcissistic survival instinct, spun around to Liam. She grabbed his tuxedo jacket, her eyes wide with manufactured panic. "Liam, oh my God, he's crazy. He's my obsessive ex-boyfriend. He's been stalking me. Please get security." She was so desperate. She was still trying to play the game. Liam looked down at her hands gripping his jacket. He didn't look angry. He just looked incredibly tired. Slowly, deliberately, he reached up and peeled her fingers off his lapels. He took a full step back from her. "Is he a stalker, Maya?" Liam asked, his voice echoing through the microphone clipped to the officiant's stand. The entire crowd heard it. "Or is he the guy who pays the rent for the apartment you told me you owned? Is he the guy who leased your Audi?" Maya froze. The entire universe seemed to stop spinning for her. She looked from Liam to me and back to Liam. The realization hit her like a freight train. We knew. We both knew. And we had been planning this together. "Liam, no," she whimpered, her voice dropping the confident act and turning into a pathetic, high-pitched squeak. "I can explain. Please, baby, I love you." "You love my money," I interrupted, walking slowly down the aisle until I was standing right at the edge of the altar. I held up the thick folder for the crowd to see. "And you love the fact that Liam didn't know you were using it to fund this entire fairy tale." For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark. I've lived with the bride for 5 years. I bought the dress she's wearing. I paid for the archway you're looking at. And unfortunately for her, I also control the bank accounts. The crowd erupted into furious, chaotic whispers. People were pointing, gasping, covering their mouths. Liam's mother looked like she was going to faint. "You're ruining my wedding!" Maya finally screamed, the perfect angelic mask completely shattering, revealing the ugly, furious manipulator underneath. "Get out! Both of you, get out!" But the universe wasn't finished with her yet, because right at that exact moment, the heavy glass doors of the conservatory burst open. The venue manager, a woman in a sharp gray suit holding a tablet, practically sprinted down the aisle, looking absolutely frantic. She completely ignored the drama, beelining straight for Helen, who was listed as the emergency contact. Ma'am, I am so sorry to interrupt," the manager gasped, loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear perfectly. "But there is a massive problem. The final authorization for the catering, the open bar, and the venue fee just hard declined. All the cards on file are frozen. If we don't get a wire transfer for $45,000 right now, I have to pull my staff and call the police for fraud." The silence that followed was absolute. Maya looked at the manager. Then, her horrified, tear-filled eyes slowly dragged over to meet mine. I smiled. It was the most genuine, relaxed smile I had worn in almost a month. "Well," I said, buttoning my suit jacket and turning to Liam, "I think that's our cue. You want to grab a beer? I know a great place back in the city." Liam reached up, unclipped his boutonniere, and dropped the white flower onto the carpet right next to Maya's scattered bouquet. "A beer sounds fantastic, Mark," Liam said. Without looking back, Liam and I walked shoulder to shoulder down the center of the white aisle, leaving Maya standing alone at the altar in a $10,000 dress she didn't own, screaming at a mother who couldn't save her, surrounded by 200 guests who knew the exact truth, and $45,000 in debt she had absolutely no way to pay. It was, without a doubt, the most beautiful wedding I had ever attended. It has been exactly 14 months since the wedding that wasn't. And let me tell you, the fallout was of biblical proportions. When Liam and I walked out of the Rosewood estate that afternoon, we left behind a crater of absolute financial and social destruction. Because Maya and her mother, Helen, had both eagerly signed the venue contracts to secure the dates, they were legally on the hook for the entire $45,000 balance. The Rosewood estate did not play around. When the wire transfer didn't arrive by Monday morning, they sued. Maya tried to call me. She left me 34 voicemails in 2 days, begging me to unfreeze the accounts, sobbing that I was ruining her life. I didn't listen to a single one. I simply forwarded them to my lawyer, who sent her a very aggressively worded cease and desist letter, along with an official demand for the repayment of the thousands of dollars she had embezzled from my account over the years. Without my money to fund her illusion, Maya's fake life evaporated overnight. She had to sell the custom 3-carat diamond ring I had bought her just to afford a defense attorney. Since I stopped paying the lease, her luxury Audi was repossessed right out of her mother's driveway. And because her marketing consulting business was entirely fictional, she had absolutely zero income to fall back on. The last update I got was from a mutual acquaintance. Maya is currently 31 years old, completely broke, buried in legal debt, and living back in her childhood bedroom with Helen. Apparently, the two of them argue constantly. The ATM is permanently closed, and neither of them knows how to survive without it. As for Liam and me, we actually did go grab that beer, and then we grabbed another one. We ended up sitting in a dive bar for 5 hours, sharing stories, comparing timelines, and realizing that we actually had a lot in common once the pathological liar was removed from the equation. We didn't just become trauma-bonded survivors, we actually became good friends. A few months after the wedding incident, my tech firm needed a lead photographer for a massive national ad campaign. I recommended Liam. He came in, absolutely nailed the pitch, and won a 6-figure contract. His freelance business is booming. He finally got his own studio downtown, and he actually just introduced me to a girl he grew up with. We've been dating for 3 months, and for the first time in 5 years, I'm with someone who asks about my day, not my credit limit. People always say that revenge is toxic. They tell you to just walk away and let karma handle it. But sometimes karma is stuck in traffic. Sometimes karma needs a ride, and sometimes the absolute best thing you can do for the universe is to put on a black suit, walk down the aisle, and deliver the check yourself. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed watching a gold digger get exactly what she deserved, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, what would you have done if you found that iPad? See you in the next one.